The streets pulled at me like old roots under pavement. Dust settled on the dashboard as I drove past the same split-level houses, their lawns trimmed sharp against the summer heat. That ache started low in my chest, the unfinished words from our youth hanging there, heavy as unsent letters. Then I saw her silhouette at the cul-de-sac, standing amid neighbors with their plastic smiles and iced tea pitchers. My heart thudded against my ribs, stakes rising fast. This wasn't just a family barbecue, it was collision. I parked and stepped into the chaos, smoke from the grill curling thick, and our eyes locked across the lawn. The world narrowed to that gaze. The engine hummed low, steady as a held breath. I rolled the windows down, letting the suburban scent rush in. Cut grass, sharp and green, mixed with the faint char of distant grills firing up for the afternoon. It was the kind of air that carried everything. Every barbecue invite and whispered judgment from block to block. My hands gripped the wheel tighter, knuckles paling against the leather. I'd left this place years ago, traded its watchful eyes for the anonymity of city lights. But now the pull dragged me back for Aunt Ellen's birthday, a simple family gathering that felt like stepping into a trap. Memories flooded then, unbidden, like water seeping through cracks in a foundation. High school whispers in the halls, our voices low near the lockers, trading secrets about classes and crushes no one else could know. Hidden touches in shadowed backyards. Her fingers brushing mine behind the fence during those endless summer evenings when the neighborhood kids played tag until dark. We'd sneak away, hearts pounding under the oak trees, her laugh soft against my ear. But fear always won. The town's quiet rules, the way folks nodded at church but watched your every move after. I left for college, then the job in the city, telling myself it was ambition. Really, it was escape. From her. From us. The driveway appeared too soon, gravel crunching under the tires as I pulled in beside my parents' sedan. The house looked the same. Vinyl siding, faded but clean. Flower beds edged neat along the walk. Mom was at the door before I killed the engine, her apron dusted with flour, pulling me into a hug that smelled of vanilla and worry. "You made it," she said, voice bright but eyes searching my face. Dad clapped my shoulder from behind, asking about the drive, the traffic, anything to fill the air. Their greetings masked it all, that deeper pull toward the cul-de-sac just beyond, where the real gathering hummed. Cars lined the street already, laughter spilling from backyards, the sizzle of burgers on grills cutting through the afternoon haze. I grabbed my bag, forced a smile, and followed them inside for a quick change. The kitchen was warm, counters cluttered with casseroles and Jell-O salads, the kind of spread that said community, but tasted like obligation. Mom fussed over my shirt, Dad poured iced tea, but my mind wandered to the noise outside. The barbecue was in full swing by now. Neighbors mingling on the Miller's lawn, that wide stretch of grass where we'd all gathered since I was a kid. I stepped out the back door, the screen slapping shut behind me, and scanned the crowd. Kids chased each other with water guns, adults clustered around folding tables, red Solo cups in hand. That's when I spotted her first. Sarah, still strong-shouldered, her frame carrying the same quiet power from our teenage years, though lines etched to her eyes now. From sun or strain, I couldn't tell. She moved through the edges of the group, serving plates with that unassuming grace, balancing deviled eggs and potato salad on a tray like it was nothing. Her hair was shorter, pulled back in a practical ponytail, but the way she tilted her head when listening, that hadn't changed. She wore a simple sundress, faded blue against the green lawn, sleeves rolled to her elbows. Our eyes met again, brief but electric, and she paused, tray dipping slightly in her grip. The approach felt like crossing an old fault line, the ground shifting under my sneakers with every step. The air thickened around us, heavy with unspoken years. The moves I'd made, the life she'd built here without me. Neighbors nodded as I passed, their hellos polite but probing, like they remembered the girl who'd bolted after graduation and wondered why I was back. Sarah set the tray down on a picnic table, wiping her hands on a napkin, and turned fully toward me. "Jordan," she said, voice low, steady, like gravel under tires. No surprise, just recognition. That name from her lips hit like a stone skipped across still water, rippling out. "It's been a while," I managed, throat tight. She nodded, eyes holding mine, the warmth stirring old embers I'd banked long ago. "Yeah, you look good. City suits you." There was no bitterness, just fact. But the space between us buzzed with what wasn't said. We stood there a beat too long, the grill smoke curling between us, before a neighbor called her name, something about more ice, and she glanced away. "Catch up later?" she asked, already moving. I nodded, watching her go, the crowd swallowing her again. The mingle pulled me in then, family drawing me to their circle with questions about work, the apartment downtown, anything to anchor me here. But my gaze kept drifting, following her through the throng. She laughed at something Mrs. Hargrove said, but it didn't reach her eyes. And I wondered what weight she carried now, in this place that remembered everything. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the lawn, and the eyes, hers, theirs, followed me too, pulling me deeper into the afternoon's quiet unraveling. Laughter echoed from the neighbors, sharp and false, like glass clinking in empty rooms. It bounced off the split-level houses ringing the cul-de-sac, the kind of sound that filled space but left you hollow. Their glances landed on me heavy, weights pressing into skin already tight from the drive. Mrs. Hargrove from across the street tilted her head, her smile all teeth as she asked about my job in the city. But her eyes flicked to Sarah every few seconds, like she was piecing together an old puzzle. The air hummed with it, that suburban scrutiny, polite as pie but cutting deep. I nodded through the small talk, forcing words about promotions and traffic, but the weight settled in my shoulders, familiar as the humidity clinging to everything. Sarah moved through the crowd like she belonged to the edges, avoiding the center where the men stood by the grill, flipping burgers with red tongs. Her hands stayed busy, collecting empty cups from the grass, stacking them neat on a tray. She didn't seek the circle of women gossiping about school fundraisers or new fences. Instead, she drifted, ponytail swinging slight with each step. I watched her bend to pick up a stray napkin, the sundress pulling taut across her back, and the years blurred. She was still the girl who'd pull me aside during these same gatherings, away from prying eyes, to share a stolen sip of lemonade or a quiet complaint about the heat. Summer nights came back then, uninvited, her laugh cutting through the tension like a cool breeze off the lake we never reached. We'd slip out after dark, when the cul-de-sac lights dimmed and the families retreated inside, their windows glowing yellow against the black. Under the big oak at the end of the block, branches heavy with leaves, she'd lean close, breath warm on my neck, and laugh at nothing. My awkward joke, the way a firefly blinked wrong, that sound had unraveled me, made the world's rules feel distant, bendable. But dawn always came, with its church bells and judgmental nods, and we'd part with hands brushing accidental, promises to meet again, that faded like dew. My family pulled me deeper into their small talk now, Aunt Ellen waving me over with a plate of ribs, sauce dripping sticky onto the foil. "Jordan, tell us about that big project," she said, voice loud to carry over the kids' shouts. Dad nodded beside her, proud but probing, asking if the city ever got lonely. I answered in halves, words tumbling out about deadlines and coffee runs, but my gaze kept drifting to Sarah's corner, where she stood alone by the picnic table, wiping down a cooler lid. The sun slanted low, painting her in gold, and isolation clung to her like the shadows lengthening across the lawn. She caught me looking once, held it a second too long, then turned away, busying her hands with a stack of napkins. The afternoon wore on, plates emptying, but the crowd pressed close. I maneuvered through, grabbing a drink from the cooler, cold condensation slick on the can, and made my way toward her. Our paths crossed near the edge of the grass, where the lawn met the gravel drive. She reached for a cup at the same moment I did, our hands brushing subtle, fingers grazing like a spark off flint. Time slowed, that touch pulling up the forbidden closeness we'd buried. Late nights in her basement, door cracked for air, bodies close under a shared blanket, watching old movies no one else knew. Her skin against mine then. Tentative, electric. The world outside forgotten until a car passed and we froze. She pulled back first, but not far, her eyes searching mine. "You always were clumsy with drinks," she said, voice low, a hint of that old tease. I laughed, short and real, the sound lost in the chatter. But the brush lingered, warmth spreading up my arm, stirring dust I'd thought settled. The evening deepened around us, sky bruising purple, group thinning as folks carried dishes inside, calling goodbyes over shoulders. Kids' voices faded, grills cooled with hisses of fat on coals. Sarah set her tray down, wiped her forehead with the back of her hand, and nodded toward the quieter edge of the yard, where the fence met overgrown bushes. "Walk with me?" she asked, not waiting for yes. We stepped away from the lights, gravel crunching soft underfoot, the cul-de-sac's hum receding like a held breath released. The air cooled, carrying the scent of cooling earth and distant rain. She stopped by the fence, arms crossed loose, and turned to me. The confrontation hung there, unspoken but solid, her face half-shadowed, eyes steady with questions years old. Fireflies flickered as we stepped further from the string lights strung across the miller's patio, their glow dimming behind us like forgotten stars. Gravel crunched underfoot, sharp and uneven, each step pulling us deeper into the yard-shadowed fringe, where the fence sagged under overgrown honeysuckle. The air hung still, thick with the day's leftover heat, but cooler here, away from the crowd's warmth. Sarah stopped first, her back to the wooden slats, arms loose at her sides. I stood a few feet away, hands shoved in my pockets, the distance between us feeling both too much and not enough. The bugs blinked erratic yellow pulses cutting through the dusk, mirroring the unsteady beat in my chest. Her voice came low, almost swallowed by the crickets starting their chorus. So, the city. What's it like now? Still the escape you chased? There was an edge to it, old hurt threading through the words like a vein in stone. Not accusation, but close enough to sting. I shifted my weight, gravel shifting again, and met her eyes. They held steady in the low light, hazel flecked with the firefly's glow. It's fast, I said. Crowded streets, lights that never sleep. Work keeps me moving. Marketing firm, big accounts, the kind that pay for that apartment with the view. But my voice caught, the words hollow even to me. She nodded slow, like she'd expected as much, but her jaw tightened just a fraction. I couldn't hold back then. The admission slipped out, rough as the fence bark behind her. I left because I was scared, Sarah. This place, it's watchful. Every glance from the neighbors, every whisper after church. We were kids stealing moments, but I saw the end coming. The judgments, the way they'd box us in. I ran to college, then the job, telling myself it was for a better life. Really, it was fear driving the wheel. The words hung there, heavy, pulling at the silence. Her face didn't change much, but her eyes softened, pain flickering brief like a firefly's wink. She uncrossed her arms, fingers tracing the fence wire, the metal cool under her touch. She shared fragments then, voice dropping lower, as if the night might carry her words back to the lights. I stayed for family. Mom got sick right after you left. Cancer, quick and mean. Dad needed help with the house, the bills, someone to keep up appearances. She paused, gaze drifting to the yard's edge, where the grass met wilder growth. The town didn't forget us, Jordan. Those summer nights, the touches behind the bleachers, they turned into quiet judgments. Folks smiled at the grocery, but their eyes said different. Poor Sarah, still here, still alone. I bore it alone, built a life in the cracks. Teach part-time at the elementary, help with community events. It's steady, but the weight, it settles in your bones. Her words landed soft, but they cut, revealing the years I'd missed, the isolation I'd left her to. Tension built in the silences that followed. Stretches where neither spoke. Just the crickets and distant laughter fading from the cul-de-sac. Our bodies drew closer without moving, the space between us shrinking to inches, guarded still, shoulders tense, hands clenched at sides. I could smell the rain scent gathering, heavy in the air, like the earth bracing for release. It mixed with her, faint soap and sweat from the afternoon's work, pulling me back to those hidden touches, the way her skin felt warm against mine in the dark. But we held back, the old fears whispering. What if the neighbors saw? What if this pulled her under too? She broke it first, stepping half away, gravel scraping. It's late. Folks will talk if we're gone too long. Her voice carried that unresolved pull, a thread tugging despite the distance. I nodded, throat tight, the night wrapping around us as we turned back toward the lights. Fireflies trailed us, blinking out one by one. The confrontation lingered, unfinished, drawing me toward dawn already. The promise of another pull in this place that wouldn't let go. The walk back felt longer, the gravel louder under our steps. Lights from the houses spilled yellow onto the lawn, casting our shadows long and tangled. Sarah paused at the fence gate, hand on the latch, and looked at me once more. Don't stay away forever this time, she said, quiet, the words a hook in my chest. Then she was gone, slipping into the thinning crowd, leaving me with the rain's promise and the ache of what we'd left unsaid. I lingered there a moment, the air thickening, first drops pattering soft on leaves overhead. The barbecue wound down, plates cleared, goodbyes called across the drive. But sleep wouldn't come easy that night. The yard's echoes were playing. Her voice, her hurt, the fireflies' fleeting light. Dawn would pull me back, I knew, to face what we'd started. I woke to the steam of coffee curling from a mug on the nightstand, the scent sharp and grounding, cutting through the haze of fitful sleep. Sunlight slanted through the blinds, dust motes dancing in the beams like fireflies gone to ground. My body ached from the lumpy guest bed, but it was the night's echoes that lingered heaviest. Sarah's voice in the dark, the rain's soft patter starting as we parted. Downstairs, voices murmured, plates clinking. Mom called up, her tone brisk with morning plans. "Jordan, we're heading to the cul-de-sac for brunch setup. Aunt Ellen wants the tables out early." No escaping it. Family obligations pulled like gravity, forcing another wander through those familiar streets. The pull toward her stronger now, insistent as the caffeine hitting my veins. I dressed quick, jeans and a faded tee, splashed water on my face to chase the shadows under my eyes. The kitchen buzzed with motion, Dad stacking chairs from the garage, Mom slicing fruit into a bowl, the citrus tang mixing with the coffee's bitterness. They didn't notice my distraction, or if they did, they let it slide, chatting about neighbors' arrivals, the weather holding fair. I grabbed a piece of toast, mumbled agreement, and stepped out with them, the screen door slapping shut. The air was crisp, dew still clinging to the grass, the cul-de-sac quiet save for distant lawnmowers starting their hum. Houses stood sentinel, curtains twitching as if the block itself watched our progress. We crossed the street, arms loaded with linens and coolers, the gravel path crunching under my sneakers. The miller's yard already stirred, a few early birds arranging chafing dishes on the picnic tables. My eyes scanned automatic, seeking her amid the setup. There, by the side garden, Sarah knelt in the dirt, trowel in hand, her knees sunk into the soft earth. Dirt smudged her nails, grounding her steady presence, like roots holding firm against wind. She wore work gloves pulled halfway off, sleeves pushed up, hair loose now, catching the light in waves. The garden bloomed modest around her, tomatoes ripening red, herbs spilling over borders. A patch of life she'd carved in this watchful place. She didn't look up at first, focused on loosening soil around a stubborn weed, her movements deliberate, unhurried. I set down the cooler, drew closer, the family chatter fading behind me. "Morning," I said, voice low to match the quiet. She glanced up then, wiping her brow with her forearm, leaving a streak of soil. Her eyes held that same steady hazel, but softer in the daylight, less guarded. "Jordan." "Couldn't sleep either?" She stood slow, brushing dirt from her hands, the motion pulling her sundress taut. We stood there a beat, the garden's earth scent rising between us, rich and alive. Family called from the tables, something about tablecloths, but I waved it off, drawn to this corner, the pull magnetic. Talk turned easy at first, weather and brunch, but it shifted, inevitable, to what we'd buried deep. "Remember those moments behind the bleachers?" I asked, voice dropping, the words slipping out like confessions long held. After practice, when the field cleared and twilight fell, we'd linger, hearts racing under the metal stands, her hand finding mine in the shadows. Stolen kisses, quick and desperate, the chain link rattling if we leaned too hard. Fear thrummed then, same as now, but so did the rush, her breath warm against my skin. She nodded, trowel pausing in her grip. How could I forget? The way the world narrowed to just us for those minutes. Her voice carried a weight, not regret but acknowledgement, the past surfacing like roots unearthed. Her resilience shone through as she spoke, weathered but unbent by the years of sidelong stares. "I stayed, Jordan. After you left, the town closed in, but I pushed back. Taught kids who asked too many questions. Planted this garden when the whispers got loud. Folks nod at the market, but their eyes linger. Sarah, still single, still here. It bends you, but doesn't break if you dig in." She gestured to the soil, nails dark with earth, her frame solid, shoulders squared against invisible winds. No victim in her tone, just truth, carved from endurance. I envied it, that quiet strength, while my city life spun fast, chasing approvals that never filled the hollow. Vulnerability slipped then, unbidden, my guard cracking under her gaze. Success feels hollow without you in it, I admitted, the words raw, hanging in the garden air. Promotions, the view from my high-rise, late nights closing deals, they gleamed, but empty. Echoes of what I'd fled. I built walls in the city, told myself it was enough. But coming back, seeing you here, steady, it makes me wonder what I traded. My voice faltered, hands clenching at my sides, the brunch noise distant now, like another life. She set the trowel down, knelt again, and handed me a pair of gloves. Help with the weeding? No pity, just invitation. I joined her, knees sinking into the warm dirt, pulling weeds that tangled deep, roots resisting, then giving way. Each tug mirrored untangling our past. The hidden touches, the unspoken fears, the goodbye I'd rushed without words. Sweat beaded on my forehead, mixing with soil, as we worked side by side. Silence is comfortable now, broken by small truths. I wrote letters once, she said, yanking a stubborn vine. Never sent them. Too scared of what you'd say back. The admission led deeper, the afternoon sun climbing, shadows shortening, pulling us toward a reveal waiting just beyond the garden's edge. More than weeds, something vital surfacing in the light. The brunch crowd grew, voices calling us over. But we lingered, hands dirty, hearts opening slow. The task grounded us. Earth under nails, past loosening like overgrowth cleared. By midday, the garden breathed freer. And so did we. The pull stronger, leading to whatever came next in this unraveling day. The coffee shop sat on the corner of Elm and Main, its bell jingling faint as I pushed through the door after brunch, the garden dirt still caked under my nails. Steam rose from the espresso machine, thick and bitter, mingling with the low hum of voices at the counter. I ordered a black drip, no sugar, needing the burn to steady the morning's pull. The place hadn't changed. Checkered floors scuffed from years of boots, walls papered with faded flyers for bake sales and prayer groups. Locals clustered at tables, nursing mugs, their talk weaving through the air like smoke. I took a stool by the window, gaze drifting to the street where minivans idled, but their murmurs caught me first, pulling sharp. Jordan's back, you know, from the city. Mrs. Ellis's voice, reedy and familiar, carried from the booth behind. I froze, cup halfway to my lips, the ceramic warm against my palm. Heard she left in a hurry after high school. Now she's here, cozying up to Sarah again. Like old times. A chuckle followed, low and knowing, from Mr. Patel across from her. Town remembers, though. Those two were thick as thieves back then. Whispers about what they got up to after dark. My stomach tightened, the coffee turning sour on my tongue. Old rumors revived by my return, slithering out like weeds we'd just pulled, roots deeper than I'd thought. I set the cup down, quiet, but the words kept coming, painting us in shadows we'd tried to outrun. I slipped out soon after, bell jingling again, the sun high now, baking the sidewalk. The walk back wound through side streets, past houses with curtains drawn tight, but the murmurs echoed in my head, stirring doubt. By afternoon, Sarah found me on the path near her place, her steps quick, face set like storm clouds gathering low. She stopped close. Too close for casual, her hand brushing my arm. We need to talk. Her voice was low, edged with warning, eyes scanning the empty street like it might betray us. We moved to her porch, the swing creaking under our weight as we sat, the wood warm from the sun. The town's memory is like slow poison, she said, gaze fixed on the fence line, where posts leaned uneven from years of wind. You show up, and it all stirs. I heard them at the shop, too, Ellis and the rest, dredging up high school like it's yesterday. Our walks home late, the way we'd linger at the park. They twist it now, with you back, into something to chew on. Her fingers clenched the swing chain, knuckles paling, the metal cool despite the heat. I felt the weight of it, that close-knit web tightening, reputations fraying at the edges. It's not just talk, Jordan. It costs here. Jobs, family nods, the quiet life I scraped together. I defended the bond then, words rushing hot. Let them talk. We were kids finding each other in this place that suffocates anything real. I won't let whispers erase that. But doubt crept in as I spoke, cold and insistent, snaking through my chest. What cost to her really? The elementary job, where parents might pull kids if rumors stuck, or her family, already thin on forgiveness after Mom's illness. The web pulled tight, neighbors' eyes like threads binding us, and I wondered if my return was the snag unraveling her steady world. She shook her head, slow, her ponytail slipping loose. It's easy for you to say. You left. I stayed, swallowed it all. She stood then, nodding to the fence. Help me fix this? Been meaning to, but hands alone. No pity in her ask, just need, pulling me into the labor. I grabbed the tools from her shed, hammer, nails, wire cutters, their weight solid in my grip. We worked side by side, sweat beading on our skin as the sun beat down, shirts sticking to backs. I held post steady while she drove nails, the thud echoing sharp. Each strike mixing with honest words tumbling out. I envied your leaving, she admitted, wiping her brow, salt stinging her eyes. Thought it meant freedom, but here, fixing what's bent, it's my way of holding ground. My arms ached, muscles burning from the strain, but the rhythm grounded us. Sweat mixing on our skin like shared secrets surfacing. As the last post straightened, she paused, hammer dangling, and met my eyes. I kept those letters, Jordan. The ones I never sent. Hid them in a box under the bed. Pleas from lonely nights, asking why you went quiet, if the city stole you whole. Her voice cracked slight, the revelation hanging heavy, raw as the calluses on her palms. I'd imagine her moving on, not clutching unsent words like lifelines. Guilt twisted in me, sharp as the wire we coiled away, the afternoons I'd spent building my life while she wrote to ghosts. Storm clouds gathered then, rolling in from the west, gray and thick, mirroring the turmoil churning inside. The air turned heavy, charged. First rumbles distant, but building. We packed the tools, hands brushing accidental, the touch lingering longer than before. This isn't over, she said, voice low against the wind picking up. But tonight, we face it. The push toward evening confession swelled, rain sent sharp, pulling us under the porch as drops started, the world blending at the edges. The barbecue's remnants lingered into family dinner that evening. Smoke still faint on our clothes as we gathered around the long oak table in my parents' dining room. Plates passed with potato salad gone cold, ribs picked clean, the air thick with grease and unspoken strain. Mom's forced smile stretched wide as she asked about work again, her fork scraping china too loud. Dad nodded along, eyes on his napkin, folding it once, twice. Aunt Ellen chimed in with neighborhood news, new driveways, church bake-offs, but the words bounced off me. The growing rift sat heavy between bites. My thoughts tangled in Sarah's unsent letters. The fence posts we'd straightened like fragile spines. I smiled back, tight, nodding through stories of cul-de-sac changes, but the warmth felt thin, cracked under the weight of what brewed outside. Rain started soft against the windows, pattering like fingers tapping secrets, pulling the conversation shorter. Dishes cleared, goodnights murmured, but sleep evaded me, the house creaking as thunder rumbled low. I slipped out later, porch light off, the screen door whispering shut behind me. Rain sheeted down now, steady on the roof, blurring the streetlights into halos. Sarah waited there, silhouette sharp against the wet rail, her hair damp at the edges from an earlier dash. She'd come uninvited, or maybe expected, the pull between us stronger than the storm. We stood close, shoulders brushing the posts, the wood slick under our palms. Barriers cracked with the first real words, her voice cutting through the downpour. Couldn't stay away after the fence, or maybe I just needed to see if you'd run again. No anger, just raw edge, rain dripping from the eaves like tears held back. Regret spilled from me then, words tumbling rough as the wind whipping leaves across the lawn. I left to chase safety, Sarah. The city promised walls high enough to hide behind. No stairs at the grocery, no whispers after services. But I left you to this town's unyielding gaze, the kind that follows you home and settles in your bed. My voice broke on the last, throat tight, the rain's rhythm matching the thud in my chest. I'd built a life of glass towers and quick exits, but here, under this porch, it crumbled. She turned, face half lit by a distant street lamp, water beating on her lashes. The admission hung, heavy as the air, pulling her closer without a step. Her pain surfaced slow, voice low against the storm's growl. I stayed, Jordan. For Mom's last days, then the house. The routines that kept me from shattering. Built a quiet life, teaching mornings, evenings with books or the garden, but the reminders never quit. A neighbor's sidelong look at the PTA, questions about why I'm alone at 38. It's constant, like gravel underfoot you can't shake. She wrapped her arms around herself, shoulders hunching slight, the sundress clinging now from the mist blowing in. No self-pity, just truth etched deep, years of endurance showing in the lines around her mouth. I saw it clear, the isolation I'd fled, the strength she'd forged alone, bending but never snapping under the weight. Our hands found each other in the dim, fingers clasping tentative at first, then firm. The touch sparked electric, current racing up my arm, yet tender, like roots twining slow through soil. Skin warm against the chill, palms rough from the day's labor, it bridged the years of silence. Nights I'd spent staring at city ceilings, wondering, while she wrote letters to empty air. Rain hammered harder, drumming the porch like a heartbeat, but we held, thumbs tracing small circles, the world narrowing to that grip. No words needed. The clasp said enough, pulling threads loose from the knots we'd tied. Resolve formed amid the downpour, solid as the posts we'd mended. I'm not leaving like before, I said, voice steady now, rain slicking my hair. Not without fighting this together. The stares, the whispers, we weave something new from the old. She squeezed my hand, eyes meeting mine, fierce in the wet light. Then we start small. Visits when the town's asleep. Calls that cut through the quiet. Thunder rolled, but we stood, unmoved, the storm washing clean what festered. Barriers down, not gone, but cracked enough for light. The night deepened, rain easing to drizzle as we parted with a lingering brush of knuckles. I watched her dash across the street, figure swallowed by shadows, heart lighter despite the ache. Dawn promised clarity, hopeful in the breaking clouds, pulling us toward whatever threads we'd reweave next. Sleep came fitful, but real. The porch's echo warming the dark. Sun broke through the next morning, shafts slicing the blinds like hesitant promises. Rain had washed the streets clean, leaving puddles that mirrored the sky's pale blue. I woke early, body heavy from the night storm, but lighter inside. The porch words echoing steady. Coffee steamed in the kitchen, Mom's routine clatter pulling me downstairs. She glanced over, eyes sharp but kind. Storm didn't keep you up? I shook my head, grabbing a mug, the ceramic warm against my palm. Plans stirred, family brunch cleanup. But my mind fixed on Sarah, the pull drawing me out the door before the clock hit 9. The air hung crisp, grass slick underfoot. The cul-de-sac stirring with distant voices, minivans backing out for church. I found her on the path behind the houses, the old trail we'd carved as kids, winding past backyards and chain-link fences toward the overgrown lot at the block's edge. Gravel mixed with dirt here, weeds pushing through cracks where we'd first faltered, stolen glances turning to touches, hearts thudding against the quiet. She walked slow, hands in her pockets, hair loose and catching the light. I caught up, steps falling in beside hers. No words at first, just the crunch under boots. The path sloped gentle, bordered by fences sagging from years, honeysuckle tangling wild. Sun warmed my shoulders, drying the last damp from leaves, and the world felt possible, threads loosening for reweaving. We paused at the bend, where the big oak still stood, branches thick and knotted. This is where it started, I said, voice low, tracing the bark with my fingers, rough texture grounding me. She nodded, leaning against the trunk, her shoulder brushing mine. Visions shared then, easy as breath. I'm rooted here, Jordan. The house, the kids I teach, they're my ground. Can't uproot without breaking something. Her words carried weight, steady as the tree, eyes on the path ahead, where it faded into brush. I felt it too, the pull back to this earth. The suburbs grip not just chains, but soil. The city spins me dizzy now. Deadlines thud like heartbeats, but empty. This ground, it calls me home, to you. Sun filtered through leaves, dappling her face. And she turned, gaze holding mine. The falter of youth replaced by quiet certainty. Judgments loomed as we walked on, the path narrowing, fences closing in like the town's scrutiny. They'll stare harder now, she said, voice edged with the familiar caution. Whispers at the market, eyes at church. Jordan and Sarah, stirring old trouble. I stopped, gravel shifting under my heel, and faced her. We face it together. Strengthen that. Your roots, my return. No more hiding in shadows. Her hand found mine, fingers lacing firm, the touch cutting through doubt like sun through clouds. Unity swelled, simple but solid, against the suburban web. Neighbors' nods turning to questions. But we'd stand, shoulders touching, unbent. The path curved, opening to the lot, wild grass swaying, and the weight lifted slight, shared steps lighter. Promises came natural then, words weaving distance into something holdable. Visits first, I said, squeezing her hand. Weekends when the street's quiet, slipping in like we used to. She smiled, faint, thumb tracing my knuckle. Calls at night, voices cutting the miles, yours pulling me through the days. The vision built, threads of time and space twisting close, not erasing the gap, but bridging it. Sun climbed higher, warming the air, birds calling sharp from the brush. We reached the lot's edge, wildflowers nodding in breeze, and turned back, path familiar now, not faltering ground, but reclaimed. Emotional release hit at the oak again, bodies drawing close without plan. Her arms wrapped me, solid, pulling tight, my face against her shoulder, scent of earth and rain lingering. We clutched, breath sinking, bodies remembering what words forgot. The curve of hip, warmth of skin, heartbeats thudding shared. Tears pricked my eyes, hot and quick. Hers too, silent against my hair. The embrace held, world fading to that press, years dissolving in the hold. Sun beat down, steady, as we pulled apart slow, foreheads touching, breaths mingling. The walk home faded to glimpses. Future mornings on this path, hands linked against stairs. Evenings, with calls bridging cities, voices, soft and dark. Her garden thriving under joint care, roots entwined. Hearts aligned in quiet defiance, the suburbs' grip no longer cage but canvas. We parted at her fence, lingering gaze promising more. Sun high now, threads rewoven strong. The final family goodbye came too soon. Suitcases thumping into the trunk under the afternoon sun. Mom's hugs lingering like she sensed the shift in me. Dad clapped my shoulder one last time, his grip firm, but eyes questioning the quiet that had settled over the last days. Drive safe, Jordan. City's waiting. I nodded, forcing a smile as Aunt Ellen waved from the porch, her voice calling about next year's barbecue. The cul-de-sac stretched behind them, houses standing sentinel, but my gaze pulled elsewhere, toward Sarah's door just across the way. I couldn't leave without it. Those private words, the thread we'd started reweaving. One more stop, I said to no one, engine idling low as I pulled away from the driveway, heart thudding steady against the wheel. Her house appeared small against the row of similar roofs, porch swing swaying empty in the breeze. I parked at the curb, gravel settling quiet, and walked up the path, steps measured, the air carrying faint cut grass from a neighbor's mower. She opened before I knocked, like she'd been waiting, door creaking soft on hinges worn from years. No surprise in her eyes, just that steady hazel, pulling me inside without a word. The living room smelled of fresh coffee and earth from the garden, sunlight slanting through curtains to dust the wooden floors. We stood close, space between us charged but easy now, barriers down enough for truth. I couldn't forget you, Sarah, I said, voice low, the words settling heavy, because you were home's true shape all along, the one I chased in city lights but never found. My hand found hers, fingers lacing natural, her palm warm and calloused from the soil. She squeezed back, thumb tracing my knuckle, the touch grounding like roots in steady earth. This place shaped me too, she replied, gaze holding mine, unflinching. The stares, the whispers, they bent me, but you? Coming back straightens it all. No rush in her tone, just fact, carved from the resilience we'd both earned, the hard way. The room felt smaller, air thickening with the weight of it, but comfortable, like slipping into old boots that still fit. We sank onto the couch then, knees brushing, planning small steps to bridge what distance remained. Weekends first, I suggested, leaning into the cushions, her shoulder solid against mine. Slip out when the street's empty, away from watchful eyes. Maybe that cabin by the lake, hours from here. She nodded, smile faint but real, her hand still in mine. And calls every night, voices cutting through the quiet, yours pulling me through lesson plans and garden rows. The vision built, simple, no grand escapes, just threads of time woven careful. Drives under cover of dusk, shared meals in hidden spots, bodies close without the town's gaze pressing in. Sun shifted, casting long shadows across the rug. But we lingered, words flowing easy, laughter slipping in light as morning mist on lawns. Her tease about my city coffee snobbery, my jab at her endless weeding. It bubbled up natural, easing the ache, her chuckle low and warm against my ear. Laughter returned fuller as we talked, light chasing the last shadows of doubt. She pulled me up then, toward the kitchen, pouring iced tea from a pitcher on the counter, glasses clinking cool. Just small steps, she said, raising hers, eyes sparkling, brief like dew catching light. We drank slow, standing close, the sweetness cutting the day's heat. But time tugged, my drive looming, the highway calling back to deadlines and high-rises. We moved to the door, her hand on the knob, mine on her arm, reluctance thick in the air. Parting came gentle, lingering gaze holding what words couldn't. Hope blooming like spring weeds through cracked pavement, stubborn and green, pushing toward light despite the concrete world. I stepped out, sun dipping lower, her silhouette filling the doorway. "Drive safe," she called, voice steady, but her eyes said more. Promise. Pull. The shape of home waiting. The car door shut soft, engine humming to life. But as I pulled away, the cul-de-sac shrinking in the mirror, reflection broadened, resilience found in the quiet vows we'd made. Not in fleeing or enduring alone, but in turning back, hands clasped against the weight. The suburbs faded, but she stayed, rooted deep, drawing me home in ways the city never could. Miles unspooled, but the thread held, strong and true. Her hand in mine felt like the earth steadying after quake. If you've carried a past like this quiet weight, share below. Your stories ground us. Subscribe for more tales of love reclaiming its ground.